The challenge that we first face is, what are we actually in pursuit of? I'm fired up, I'm excited, look at all the things we could achieve, and I'm like, look, I just got to keep up this pace of 80-hour weeks and it's going to be fine, and look how amazing this is going to be. And I say, okay, what do you think? And she says, nothing. Here's the actual tactical reality. So I started studying a ton of how consumers make decisions from the psychology perspective, and everyone's looking at 3 questions they're going to ask whether they want to hire you or not.
Today's guest is building a bigger life, not just a bigger business. He's a man of deep faith. He's a devoted husband and a proud father of 5. He's a real estate leader who helps realtors align their work with their walk, their goals, and their grace. He's the founder of the Faithful Agent Community and 210 Collective at EXP. None other than Garrett Maroon. What's up, man?
That is the nicest introduction, Bryce. If you ask my wife, that's not how she'd introduce me, but I appreciate it, brother. Glad to be here, man.
With 5 kids, she introduces you with, hey, here's the baby.
Yeah, right, exactly. She introduces me as, I have 6 kids and one of them happens to be older than me. Yeah, right, exactly. That's 100% true. No, honored to be here with you, brother.
I love that, man. Yep. We were talking a little bit before we hit that sexy record button around traction versus distraction. And I wanted to pick your brain a little bit on that, because in a world of social media, man, especially as men, we're pulled in so many different directions. Will you explain some of that to our audience, how you kind of filter and funnel through that to become the best man and husband that you can possibly be?
Yeah. So, man, such a good question. First, know that I'm not amazing at this, right? I think it's easy when you're on a podcast or on stage or whatever that they're like, well, you must have it all figured out. I certainly don't, right? I'm a work in progress like everybody else. But, the idea of distraction versus traction, the longer I've been in business, so I've been in business 11 years. We've got 5 kids. The oldest is 8. The youngest is 3.5 months. And so the more that I've gone through business and gone through life, I've recognized that what I said yes to early on in my career was not traction, it was distraction. I was saying yes because it was exciting, it was an opportunity, it seemed fun, I wanted to do it. And I didn't have a very clear vision of where I wanted my life to go. I certainly didn't have a very clear vision of what I wanted for my family. I'm an entrepreneur, right? Like you. And so I'm optimistic. Everything's going to be amazing. It's going to be the greatest experience ever. And it almost never is, right? And so I struggled for a long time to make decisions. I did what people expected of me. I did what made more money, but I didn't really have a better way to keep score. And so I just kept making those decisions, right? There was no basis of keeping score and knowing who was winning the game and who wasn't, other than what the world would tell me, which is, how much money are you making? And I thought, man, that can't be the only definition of success. It certainly isn't. I wouldn't say it was, but all my decisions were based on, was this going to make more money? Was it going to make more money? And that was it. And so I started to shift, and really 2 main principles for me, Bryce, were first, I redefined my own scoreboard, right? Like I was an athlete for a long time. Now I'm just short and fat, but, so I'm not as good of an athlete as I was. But I was an athlete for a long time. And how do you know who's winning the game? You look at the scoreboard. Well, what I realized was, if you change the way you keep score, you change the way you play, right? If the NBA said, well, you can't dunk anymore, well, everyone's going to take jump shots, right? And so what I realized was, in the business world, my scoreboard was only about, right? The scoreboard was, how much money did you make? For me in real estate, how many homes did you sell? How big was your team? What was your ranking? All the things. And so that was the only way I could keep score, because that's what they told me the scorecard was. When I changed that to say, my new scorecard is going to be a business goal, certainly, but now it's a wife goal and it's a kid goal, I now had a new way to keep score, a new way to make decisions, right? My wife goal was 2 dates a month. My kid goal was take every 7th week off. And so now when an opportunity came through to determine, is it traction or distraction? It was, does it hit my profit goal? Sure. Does it allow me to still take 2 dates a month, this month with my wife? Sure. Is it on the 7th week off? Oh, it is. I got to say no. Now it's a distraction. It's not traction anymore, right? So that was the first one. The second one, Bryce, was what I call the hierarchy of attention. A lot of us have, if you're a business owner, you have, here's my organizational chart. Here's what this is going to look like. But the reality is we haven't built out in our own lives. Most of us, I hadn't built out in our own lives who deserves the best of our attention and how do we keep track of that? You and I were talking about that pre-show a little bit, right? I'm not talking about time. I'm talking about quality of attention. And so for me now, my hierarchy is my relationship with the Lord, my wife, my kids, then my work. And so at the end of the week, what I have to do is I have to stop and say, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much quality attention did each of these areas get? No, my kids aren't going to get as much time with daddy as my work does, right? That's not really possible to do that. But I look and say, did I spend the quality time I wanted to with them? Did they get the best of my attention? Or did they just get when daddy was tired at the end of the day? I didn't preserve any energy for them. I didn't do any activities in my work day that fired me up so I could show up well to them. I just kind of showed up and I played with them a little bit and then I fell asleep with my wife later. Or did I intentionally say, man, Garrett, you were a 5 this week with your wife. How do you be a 6 or 7 this coming week? What's one thing you can do? And so even just making sure that as a business owner, I don't buy into the lie that I can be all things to all people all the time, because it's just not true. I need to show up really, really well for my wife. I need to show up really, really well for my kids. And any time after that that's left over, which is a lot, anytime after that left over, I have to be as excellent as possible in those working hours, which means saying no to more things than I say yes to, because only certain things actually move the needle, right? So there's a long conversation inside of that, but looking and saying, where am I actually trying to go? And that's traction. Everything else is distraction. 90% of what is offered to you is going to be distraction. And if you don't have clarity on that, you're going to end up so far off the track of where you meant to be, you'll not even recognize what you're trying to build. And that's difficult, right? Whether that's your life or your business, that's really hard.
Garrett, what's our highest form of currency? Is it attention or is it time?
I don't think it's time. I would say that it's presence. I know you didn't give me that as an option. And that's kind of attention. But I think it's just the ability to just be there and be attentive, but be fully present in the moments that you do have. Because again, as a business owner like you're building something, right? You're ambitious. That's good. That's what we should be. And so when we choose, you and I both know, when I am sitting there with my kids and I'm trying to give them my attention's also getting pulled away from me from all the other thoughts that I have about the day or the ideas that I want to, whatever it is that I'm trying to do. And so fully being present to me is physical, emotional, spiritual, right? Mental, all of those things, just to be with them in what they're going through. When my 2-year-old says, Daddy, can you play tiles with me? Right? And saying, yes, Daddy's going to put my phone away. I'm going to put everything away. I'm going to take my Apple Watch off and I'm going to sit there on the floor and just play with you and be fully present.
Be where your feet are, which is incredibly valuable. In a world, man, where entrepreneurship is on the rise, people don't want to work for the man anymore. They don't want to be stuck in that 9-to-5 container. They want to simply create their own container. What are your thoughts on this yin and yang in relation to masculinity and femininity? Because masculinity is, I take ownership of my life. I'm stoic. My emotions can get stuffed down. They get put on the back burner. I need to provide and I need to protect. And sometimes that, especially myself, that floats into the forefront of the lenses where, hey, I need to provide and protect, because if I don't do these things, the game's not going to keep being played as far as the business. The goal isn't to win, it's to keep playing and make it to that next month, especially early on. Maybe in year 11, things change a little bit. It's about scalability and efficiency and all those things. But in year 1 to 5, when your nose is grinding, what does that look like for you, Garrett, as far as where you draw the boundaries? Because yes, I agree that the no's make the yeses more valuable. But then the other side of me is like, man, if you're single income, no kids, or if you're recently married and you're trying to build that awesome foundation, there's going to need to be some foundational sacrifices that take place so that in the future, you have this awesome container that allows you the freedoms to do 2 date days a month, take some time off for the kids, maybe go and be a chaperone or something for a field trip for the kids at school. How do you kind of figure out the dosage of attention in relation to, on one side, you've got provide and protect, I have to do these things. It's a non-negotiable versus, hey, this needs to actually turn off and I need to be dad right now and I need to be husband right now.
Again, a work in progress there, but I would say what I have to do to provide is the right question people need to be asking themselves, because I would say most of us overplay that answer. I have to build this bigger. I have to earn more income. I have to X, Y, and Z. And some of that is honestly trying to put more money in your ego account, not the bank account, right? Not the bank account with the relationships and what actually it takes to provide for the family. So I had it in the experience, Bryce. I wrote a book. Now that's where all of this started. Was I was in my backyard. My real estate team was doing really well. We were making a lot of money. I had written out this plan. I was doing thinking time of how to double my profits the next year, but I couldn't figure out how to do that without working an extra 20 hours a week. So I was only working about 40 in the business. I'd been in for about 7 years at this point. I had a small team, and I thought, okay, I can double my profit. That would be amazing. But this question hit me right there in that moment. And I said, if I could look back on this man sitting right here today, 5 years from now, would I be most proud of the guy who figured out how to double his profit but work more, or figured out a way instead to make as much money as I was making that day, but do it in less time and spend more time with my kids? Who would I personally be most proud of? And when I started to ask that question, I realized that's not money that I needed. It's money that I wanted. It's money that was the scorecard for me. It's how I compared myself to other people, right? It made me feel better about myself. I'm not saying pursuit of more income is a bad thing. I'm making more now than I was working less. I am saying, though, that we've got to stop and ask ourselves the question, what does provision look like? And how much do I need to provide? And if I can achieve that in 40 hours a week, awesome. If it's going to take me 60 at the beginning, it took me 5.5 months to make a dime, right, when I started my business, then yeah, you got to go out and do the work. You can't just get in there. And the younger generation, like you're talking about, they don't see the sacrifice that is required to build any kind of business that's sustainable. It looks fun. It looks exciting. In my industry, it's, oh, you make a nice fancy Instagram video and you build your business. Well, that's not how this works. You've got to ask that question. What is actually required of me to provide? And so I'll give you a reframe. For me, it shifted from, I was on a show, a podcast guest yesterday, and someone said, all right, Garrett, tell me how you would help a real estate agent go sell 30 houses this year and make $200,000. And I said, that is the easiest answer ever. Go work 120 hours, invest $100,000. You'll get there. Absolutely. You just burn yourself out, run yourself ragged, whatever, you'll get there. What we need to be doing is asking ourselves better questions. Let's say the same person. Okay, how do I make $200,000? That's a great question, but we got to actually finish the question. How do I make, and it's each person's scenario, how do I make $200,000 in under 50 hours a week so I can still have dinner at home every night, right? Or whatever the question is, we need to reframe it so we actually go build the right business. And so that's what I mean by having a clear definition of what does it mean to provide and what am I actually going to accomplish. So for me, it's how do I make $500,000 while I still take 2 day dates a month with my wife and can take every 7th week off? It's in pursuit of now the right question. When we ask the wrong question, we get the wrong answer. And a lot of times we don't even know that. And so that to me is the reframe for somebody. If you're young and you're in that space, go for it. Being young and single or young and married with no kids is the best time to try to grow something, right? You've got more time and space. You have more attention and energy you can give out as long as your spouse is on board, because business is an us thing, not a me thing. But that's the time you should be in pursuit of those things. And then as more comes along that you are responsible for as a husband, as a dad, you've got to figure out the better way to ask the better question to now solve the problem. My kids need daddy to be present. I don't start work till 9. I end at 4 and I don't work on the weekends, right? So now I have a better question. How do I not work until 9, stop at 4 and still provide X, Y, and Z for my family, right? So
you create a framework, which is great, right? Like we don't rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems. And it sounds to me that you've created a framework that allows you to do both. You can go make money, you can be a husband, and you can be a father, which is phenomenal. But I want to challenge you and push back a little bit, which is where we started our conversation today. And that is, everything is super important. until you're sick. Me being a wellness guy, me being somebody that makes fitness a non-negotiable. Once you become sick, you realize there was only ever one thing that was important, your health. And what I'm seeing, especially in San Diego, everybody's coming down here from Silicon Valley in Northern California. We're seeing the 15-minute cities where parking is outrageous. People are paying $3,500 for a one-bedroom apartment downtown these days. There's a lot of goals in pursuit of money. I'm seeing a lot of men in pursuit of money. Everybody's talking about passive income, TikTok shop. How do I make mailbox money? Money. And my big question and my thought ideation, Garrett, is people use their health in pursuit of wealth. And then they think later that they're going to be able to use their wealth to regain their health. And we're seeing GLP-1s, we're seeing semaglutide for weight loss, we're seeing peptide everything. We're seeing big pharma throwing these quick, easy fixes to create this narrative of like, oh yeah, go get in the rat race, play the game, Garrett, go be a dad, get the white picket fence and the golden retriever, live the American dream. But now we got you. Now you lost your health in pursuit of all those things and you thought you were winning for a decade. But now on the other side of a decade, you chased short-term gratification. Now you're ours. Now we got these things called golden handcuffs on you. If you don't have health insurance, we're going to penalize you on your taxes. If you do have health insurance, we're going to put you through every single bit of healthcare where it's inconvenient, it's challenging. You're paying an arm and a leg. And if you're not paying an arm and a leg, your insurance is. And as you get older and your symptoms increase, your premium's going to go up. Oh, you've got 5 kids. We're going to put them into this game as well. I want to hear your thoughts on that because it's like, yes, we can play the game of minimal viable dose, which is how do I work as little as possible to maximize profit and increase what I love in my life, which is my wife, my kids, adventure, all the things outside the gym. But at some point, we also have to exercise literally, but also the thought ideation of minimal viable dose in the gym. How do we train for 20 to 60 minutes a day to enhance the quality of our life with our health and do all the other things that we talked about over here?
When I am most healthy and active, which we lift 4 or 5 times a week, right? We're pretty aware of these things. We don't go to doctors anymore. We do, supplements of blood and liver and all the different things, right? What I've recognized is my business opportunities, so here's the problem. There are a lot of people, and I think you're 100% right, that are trying to solve this big, massive problem. How do I build a business and still be present with my kids and my wife and all the things that I want to do? Exactly what you said. Well, if you don't have mental acuity or clarity because you are eating like crap and you're filled your body with seed oils and you're not sleeping ever and all of these things, right? You don't move your body ever. And so you sit there all day and X, Y, and Z, you don't get sunlight, all the stuff, then you're not going to be able to succeed anyways. You're making it that much more challenging on yourself. So if you want to succeed, one of my business partners, right? I won't name him, but one of my business partners, he ran track in college, but then he gained a lot of weight. And now he's on a GLP-1 shot, exactly what you said, because he was going through the process of, well, I was exercising, I was doing this, but man, I got so busy and I was running the business and all this stuff, which I totally get. And so my challenge to him recently was, all right, what do we need to cut out of the business? I'm not saying that you just cut it out and then you expand your business hours to fill that space. I'm saying cut out that hour, that 2 hours, whatever it is, and use that to focus on your health, going back on runs, going back on walks, the things that he used to do all the time, because this is really good that you're crushing it in business, but you're going to burn out. It's not a question. It's just a matter of when. And you're not just going to burn out on your business. You're going to burn out on your family. And so because I care about longevity and I care about my business succeeding, I care about my family, I care about showing up well for them, is why even on vacation, I'll get up and go exercise. Now, I'm not an epitome of health like you are, but I lift heavy weights a lot, right? We go on walks all the time. I get out first thing in the morning to get sunlight and do breathing exercises. It's not because they're this all of a sudden cure-all to everything. But if I can't show up well there, it's going to make it really difficult for me to show up well anywhere else. So I agree with you. It's the old saying, right? We just got on planes my family coming back from Orlando, you got to put your own oxygen mask on first. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a flaw in our thinking is no. If I take care of everybody else, it's going to take care of itself. You got to put your own oxygen mask on first. Make sure you're okay. And I would say do that in the morning. Again, you're the expert. I'm not. But for me, that's get up early, do it in the morning, get my body moving and fuel myself well, try to sleep. We've got 5 kids, right? So that can be interrupted every now and then, but try to get the sleep and then show up. If I'm not taking care of myself, showing up at 40% every day, how big of a business do I think I can have?
Yeah,
how big of a life can I have? Not very big.
I think you're hitting the nail on the head there. And the other thing that's really important, like, yes, you can be the example. You can get up earlier, but I also think like more is not better. Better is better. Like sometimes getting up earlier mitigates a 6 to 8 hour sleep window. And that's not always sustainable. And so what the other thing I challenge people with is, as opposed to thinking of things as in the form of life balance, where something weighs more than the other, I like the idea of life harmonization. Hey, you want to get up and you want to go move, do it with your kids. Turn it into a gamification where it's playful. Have questions for them. Give activities where, hey, if you do these 10 burpees with me, we'll get some screen time later today. Or, hey, we'll have cheese on the eggs today instead of just eggs. Like, you find little ways to motivate and inspire. Maybe those are bad examples, but you kind of get the drift of the psychology that I'm playing with there. Your kids are not going to always listen to what you say. They're going to observe and they're going to mimic what you do. And I think what I really appreciate about what you said is more is not better. Better is better. How do we integrate these things so it flawlessly fits like a puzzle piece into the business, into the family structure, into quality time with your wife? Being able to go for walks, pushing the stroller, maybe kicking a soccer ball or dribbling a basketball, having in-depth, meaningful conversations to get your kids to think, to play, to explore, dream, discover, as opposed to just marinating them with, cocoa melon and, burying them into screen time that's inevitably going to shift their psychology, allowing them to really be connected with nature, allowing them to problem solve, letting them be frustrated and bored at times, because that creates space for innovation. And I love the way you describe that, man. And what I want to unpack a little bit with you and peel back the layers of the onion is you're a deep man of faith. When faith is the foundation, the building never falls. But how did you build trust with the man upstairs and be able to integrate that over the course of time where you could diffuse that not just into your family dynamic, but also into your community and your business?
So, and real quick, I'll go back because I'll answer that. But exactly what you just said, the incorporation of the kids into those things is 1,000% right. Our kids are, I don't care, it's raining, go outside, figure something out. You'll have fun. They have way more fun. There's there's YouTube videos that are workout videos. That's what they watch. Great. You get to come in here, you get to work out with daddy or mommy and those things. It is building that in them so that, like, I didn't have that, and I love my parents, but I didn't have that. And so I had to figure all of that out. My kids hopefully are growing up into a system where this is just part of what we do. We go on walks, right? We play in the rain. We lift heavy weights. That's just part of what happens. So I agree with you 1,000%. Man, when it comes to my faith, I grew up in a Christian home and I'm super thankful for that. Gone to church my entire life, but don't think I took my faith seriously for myself until college. It was always my parents' faith and just kind of went along with what they did. When I really started diving in and studying the Bible and understanding the promises of God and what he said and what he's done for us, it's again, always a work in progress, but it's allowed me to recognize in my business that when I look through scripture, God promises to provide for us, right? If he's given his son who's paid the penalty for our sin, he has provided even for the birds. He has made sure that the ants live and grow. He's taken care of all of these things. He upholds the entire earth in the palm of his hand. If he's provided for those things, I can see that, right? I can tangibly see these birds are still alive and thriving and everything's okay. And he promises to provide for me even more so. It gives me a shift where instead of working to provide, I know that he's promised to provide. And so therefore my shift now becomes what can I be in pursuit of and be excellent at. So the difference being, I don't need to show up and provide as if it's all on me. I trust that the Lord's going to take care of us. And so therefore now I get to say, okay, Lord, what do you want me to do? And whatever it is you want me to do, I'm going to show up and try to be as excellent as possible. And so it has allowed me to reframe what is required and necessary of me. It's still really hard, right? But it has given me, to your point, that foundation to say, I know he's going to take care of my family. It doesn't mean it's going to look the way that I want it to, but I know he's going to, because he promised and he never breaks his promises. Therefore, what do you desire of me, Lord? What do I need to do? Right? So I started a nonprofit. It's why I wrote a book, all these other things, because I believe that's what he wanted me to do. I have no idea if those are going to be provision, quote unquote, but I do know he's the God of provision and I can trust that. So it gives me freedom to be in pursuit of other things that maybe wouldn't make sense in a linear business fashion, and to seek to honor that, man, as much as I can. Again, in no way perfect at that.
How do you balance trusting God's timing with taking action?
Yeah, that's the $1,000 million question, right? I ask people all the time, how do I balance ambition versus submission, right? I'm supposed to submit my will to the Lord, which I want to and desire to, but he also created me to be ambitious. I think that what we have to recognize, we like clean black and white answers, right? But we don't live in a world of that. We live in a world that there's tension. There's good and evil.
We play in the gray area and the sexy, messy middleman.
Oh, absolutely, all the time. And so the reality is, I don't know how to balance those things, right? I don't. I know that I could prayerfully ask him to give me direction, but I also know that he's given me wisdom through scripture. He's given me people around me to give me good wisdom and counsel, but also I'm ambitious. So to not act in the way that he wired me would not be honoring to him. He created me to be ambitious. Therefore, I'm going to be ambitious. But then it's stopping and telling and recognizing in myself, but I know my nature is to be overly ambitious, pursue things for my own ego because I'm prideful, as opposed to pursue things in wisdom and what would be right for me and what he desires. So again, I think it's having the counsel around you. One of my mentors, Bryce, he always says this. He was an amazing entrepreneur. He's in his 70s now, built a massive business, sold it for $50 million. Awesome guy. And he said, his name is Butch. He said, my job was always to walk Judy, his wife, was to walk Judy to the edge of the cliff, right? He's the entrepreneur. He had all the ideas, all the things. And he said, but Judy's job was to tell me whether we should jump, because I thought everything was going to work. But Judy was the one that wasn't built like me. So I'm ambitious. I'm going to take us to the edge. She wasn't. The Lord created her differently. And so I'm going to say, Judy, should we jump? And he said, the times that she said no and he did it anyways totally backfired, right? And so he just needed to learn to trust his wife. And now he got better at that. And that's how I think about things. I'm going to take us to the cliff. That's who I am. But me and of myself, I'm going to make bad decisions. I still will, even with help. But my wife is that layer to say, I think that's a bad idea. Right now, I have all the time in the world to convince her otherwise, but I want to honor and trust that too. And so I love that visual idea, because I think that's right. I think that's how this is supposed to work.
The Trident family taught me something really important this last year, that we are all a bundle of stories, both good, bad, and everything in between. All of their cold brews remind their customers that they are part of something bigger than themselves. I start my day with the Sweet Cream Cold Brew as I am prepping my mind and body for fitness, service, coaching, and podcasting. With various locations in San Diego, they offer over 14 nitro cold brews and a variety of specialty drinks. You can find the perfect brew and pair it with one of their treats from the Keto Bakery. You can check them out over at tridentcoffee.com and use code ALLSMITH to take your coffee experience to the next level. Yeah, I love that. God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. And I think that's an interesting one, similar to what you just said around seeking edges, like getting to that edge and you're like, man, I'm not totally ready for this. How do you balance staying safe and making more conservative decisions with risk tolerance? The famous rap lyric, it takes money to make money, or scared money don't make no money. But at the end of the day, like filtering that a little bit and realizing like, hey, my risk tolerance changes based on having a wife and 5 kids. My risk tolerance can be a little higher single or recently married. For people listening that maybe fall somewhere in that spectrum, that maybe have a couple kids or just starting, as we talked about briefly, the entrepreneurship word is kind of floating to the surface a lot. It's really popular in modern day culture. Everybody wants to work for themselves. With this AI culture, you can kind of build like a small team and get things done with that. I don't know if we're going to see the W-2 continue. Everybody might be their own business and there might be services rendered based on quote unquote employees. And so I'm curious, like God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called.
Yeah, I don't think for me it's about risk tolerance. It's about faith tolerance, right? So meaning how much do I trust the Lord, but also how much do I trust that this is really what he wants for me? Because if I have conviction that this is what he wants, truthfully, I don't care how scary it is. I'm going to be in pursuit of it until he tells me otherwise. And so I don't necessarily view things as risk or not. I look at it as say, is this what I believe the Lord desires of me or not? And if it is, then I'm going to be in pursuit of that. And if it's not, then I just won't be. And so again, that's the wisdom of the many counselors around you to first and foremost your spouse, but to grant you some discernment in those spaces. It would be really hard. You see it all the time, right? In throughout scripture, but it'd be really hard if the Lord said, I want you to give all your money away and go live somewhere else right now. Okay. That would be pretty risky from a worldly perspective. I would need a lot of time to feel convicted that is actually what he's asking me to do. Right. If it's, hey, I want you to go, whatever, give $100 to this person. Okay. That seems like that's good. I don't need to go ask everybody in my life, is this the right decision or not? So there are obviously levels to decision, but I think it's a faith tolerance. Do I have full confidence that this is actually what the Lord wants for me? And if it is, and it's been encouraged by the people around me that it is, then I need to be in pursuit of that until he tells me to stop. So to me, it's not about risk. That's really how I would view any decision that I'm trying to make.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And it provides like a variant of lenses to create a filtration system when making the appropriate decisions. Since we're on the topic of money, man, money's a weird topic for people. I'm very fortunate that my mom was an accountant at a pretty prominent bowling alley in like the LA area as a kid. And so she used to count the money, and then I would go downstairs and I would bowl for a long time. And then I'd come upstairs and she'd give me a little task like, hey, I want you to count these things to double check my math. Or, hey, if you have this dollar bill and that $5 bill and this $100 bill and this much change, count that up and give me a numerical value. Like she would challenge us a little bit. And then she would create incentive in the sense of like, if you have incentive, you can then predict behavior. And so she didn't want us to just be like bored and playing. She wanted us to really update our operating system and really understand mathematics and numerical values. And I didn't realize it at the time, but now being 35, I'm very comfortable talking about money. And it's something that I think is a part of our world. But I notice this tensionous awkwardness when I'm in church and there's the announcement for tithing. And, 10% of your income is supposed to go to the house of God. And some people kind of roll their eyes, or some people just like don't really lean into that. But I think when you become a business owner and you realize that when people invest in something, it has more value. Nobody really appreciates things that are free. I grew up in a house where my father's father was a priest. And so he was like, hey, I didn't like the hypocrisy I saw growing up, so I'm not going to make it a mandate for our family to go to church. But he gave me, my brother, and my sister a Bible and was like, hey, you guys are welcome to go with any of your friends. You guys can study the Bible. If you have any questions, I will answer them. And he kind of gave us some rules and some guidelines like, be kind to your neighbor, treat others as how you want to be treated, put your grocery cart away. Just little like frameworks to kind of play with, but it wasn't super mandate or structure. And then I started really reintegrating faith into my life within the last 2 years. And I now have these unique lenses, and I want to build a really meaningful relationship with God. But when tithing pops up, I notice there's a shift in energy. The empath in me is like, and I'm curious, your thoughts, like, 10%'s a lot. That's hard for a lot of families to give that. But then you also pause and you're like, wow, like every time in my life when I've gone through something hard, when I've over delivered or I've given, it's come back like tenfold. I'm curious how to articulate that appropriately from a faith-driven mindset for our audience.
Certainly money is just a topic that the church in general, I think, does a poor job talking about. But to me, the question solely comes down to whose money is it, right? Am I the owner of such money, or am I a steward of what the resources I've been given? Mm. You know, you look at the parable of the talents in the New Testament, Jesus is talking to his disciples and says, I'll paraphrase, but basically this guy owns the land. He goes out and he gives one person 10 talents, the other 5, and the other 1. And he says, go and double it for me, right? Basically, go and grow this. Well, the 1, he comes back later, the master comes back, and the guy with 10 turns it into 10. He says, well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into the rest of your master. To the 5, the guy doubled it, another 5. Well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into the rest and joy of your master. The guy who had 1 said, master, I was scared, and so I buried it. Right. And he said, you wicked and slothful servant. And so, again, it's this reality of when we read the Bible or we hear stories someone's teaching us, we often read ourselves as, I'm the master of that field. I'm the guy going out and giving 10 and 5 and 1. No, you aren't. You're one of those people getting 10, 5, or 1. You are in receipt of whatever it is that the master had chosen to give you. You are simply a steward of the resources that the master had. And in that stewardship, you must pursue excellence. And who did the master say, well done, good and faithful servant? The one who took it and multiplied it, right? That's what good stewardship looks like. So if we have a proper understanding of it lines up exactly what you said earlier, of your body, your health, right? That's number 1, of your faith, of your mind, of your relationships, of your children, of the business that you have, of the income that you have, of your car, of your house, whatever it is. Who does it belong to? And if we get that answer wrong, and we think it's ours and we are the ones that earned all of it. And I'm not saying we didn't work for it. You got to work for it. Just like those who took the 10 and turned it into 10, he did something. It doesn't tell us what, but he didn't bury it like the guy with 1. He did something to multiply that. He did the work. So yes, we did the work, but we were in stewardship of the resources that the master has given us. And so when we understand properly that all the money that comes in to me in my business, all of our kids, my wife, all the things that we have, I'm simply a steward of those things. So therefore, giving back to the Lord, it's not even mine to begin with, right? It's, Lord, you in your kindness have given this to me. When the master showed up, he didn't say, and it doesn't tell us, right? So I'm guessing what would have happened. That guy who had 10 turned it into 20, he probably said, Master, here you go. Here's the 20. And the master says, well done, good and faithful servant, right? Whose is it? I'm a steward. I'm not an owner. And I'm a steward of the kids that I have, and I'm a steward of everything I have. Therefore, my responsibility is different than being the owner, if that makes sense. And so that's the reframe for me. It's not a reframe necessarily. It's just the biblical reality is it's not mine. And so if it's not mine and saying I'm going to give 10% back, that's not as difficult as saying this is all mine and now you expect me to give it to you. It's his, right? Why did you and I wake up today? Why do we get to have this conversation? Because the Lord literally in his kindness has allowed us to continue to breathe, and for my voice to produce sound and your voice to produce sound and our ears to hear the words that are coming out, right? And the listeners to hear the things that are being said, and their TV or their computer or their phone to continue to work. It's all in his kindness because he's upholding all of it. So therefore, it's not mine to begin with.
Yeah, I love that reframe of the concept of just possessiveness. Where I'd be a little curious is what is ownership? Does ownership actually even exist? Or is it really rent is always due? I mean, with our bodies, rent is due. They have the famous concept, pay the man. When you look at owning a car, there's still maintenance. You're always paying for gas. You have maintenance of your brakes, your transmission, your tires. You look at a home, there's still property taxes. There's still all these different things where you're always having to pay or tithe a little bit. What are your thoughts on just the concept of ownership and what that really means within the human construct?
To me, all of it comes down to stewardship. So do I own it? No. Am I the steward of it? Yes. So therefore, just like in your business and mine, what is the most effective way I can get my executive assistant, for example, to grow the business and help me succeed is to get her to think like an owner, right? That the work that she does, this is how it's going to come back to her as well. And this is the bigger, broader vision and why it matters, right? The Lord is the ultimate leader. And so he fully understands that though it is his, the best way for us to operate at a high level is to take ownership of what we have. It would be unacceptable for me to say, well, I know they're my kids, and I'm just a steward. I have no ownership over them. Let them do what they want because whatever, they belong to the Lord. Well, no, the Lord says, I gave you those on purpose, right? He gave you your business on purpose. And so the ownership aspect is for you to say, I've been given this assignment, just like the parable of the talents. I must turn this 10 into another 10. I have to. I have been given ownership of someone else's resources. It was put to me this way. A friend of mine who's he runs a community called Wealth Without Wall Street. He's an amazing, amazing man. And he said, Garrett, if I gave you $40 million and I said, take care of this money for me, how much time do you think I would expect you to spend on that per week, right? Per day, per month? And I said, a lot of time, because that's a lot of money that you just gave me. He said, if that's true, the Lord gave us literally everything. And how much time does he expect us to spend to understand money and family and faith and fitness and all those pieces? It's an infinite amount of time. We must continue the work until I am called home and I am literally not on this earth anymore. I am simply a steward who must be in pursuit of excellence because the master gave that job and that assignment to me. I must be in pursuit of those things, or I am dishonoring the master who said to the servant who buried the one, you wicked and slothful servant. That's not what I want to hear, right? That's not what ownership looks like. It says he gave, I don't know how many talents I have. I don't know if I'm a 3 or 5 or 6 or whatever I am. But I do know my responsibility is to multiply that. And in order to multiply that, I must take ownership as if it belongs to me. Now, here's the beauty of it. Whatever purpose the Lord has for me in my life, I need to be in pursuit of that. When I die, the Lord doesn't. He's here forever. And so he's going to take that purpose and he's going to give it to somebody else. Whatever I was in pursuit of for him, whatever he wanted me to build, I'm going to work on building that. He's going to bring other people along later to build and continue to build that same thing. So whose is it? It's his. I'm the steward while I'm here, right? I might be building on a mission that he had someone start in the 1800s. I have no idea. But he is the one that orchestrates those things. And so I do think that we must operate like owners while having the humility to recognize, who does this belong to anyways? You woke up. Your body works. You don't have cancer. You don't have this, whatever the scenario is, solely because the Lord is kind and has work for you to do. Get up and do the work and do it joyfully. And I think when we really start to understand what is biblically right and true, it does change the way we show up and do our work.
I really love the concept of operate like an owner. Because if you were to just observe, I mean, you're in real estate. If you look at, let's just say, property management of an apartment complex, most people take ownership of their apartment. The common area always goes to hell. It's not tended for. There's trash usually everywhere. And people's perception ends up becoming, oh, that's not mine. It's not my problem. As opposed to when you take supreme ownership, you might see a piece of toilet paper on the floor, you grab it and throw it away. I know when I operated and worked for other gyms, I always operated as if I was the owner. So I'd go in, if there was water all over the sink and the countertop, wipe that down real quick. You don't really get a tangible monetary return on investment, but you update your operating system as far as sharpening the sword of character. And the reason why I point that out is because in my brain, doing those little things consistently leads to an upgrade of the operating system. It's not about what you get, it's about what you give, and then as a byproduct, who you become. But the world doesn't think that way. In order to think that way, you have to have a level of faith. If I do said thing, I'm going to get said thing in return. They don't always think about who they become. They think about exchanging. They think about reciprocity. And that word faith, I've grown to really love that word. It feels like trust. It feels like this phrase that I love, proof of concept. I can look over my shoulder, and because of the actions that have taken place, my words and actions align. And so I am who I say I am, which I think is true confidence. But we just hosted a retreat this last weekend, and I often think about what I referenced earlier, the 5 F's. Faith, family, fitness, finances, and fun. I personally lean towards God in the church, but sometimes people don't, and that's okay. I don't want to ever shove that down someone's throat. I want to hold space to seek to understand and listen. But faith is interesting because it gets people to Heisman Trophy stiff arm it away a little bit. Mm-hmm. You might see them squint, raise their eyebrows, or like kind of disconnect from those types of conversations. But from my observation, those that practice the art of faith simply live better. They're happier, they're healthier, their relationships are better, their boundaries are better. They seemingly have a system and a framework of service, not just to the world, but to self, because we can't pour from an empty cup. We must pour from a cup that's overflowing. I want to unpack that with you and really understand faith. Personally, there's a selfish pursuit to this question, but there's also creating a better relationship with that word so that we can help other people enhance the quality of their life.
I'd start by saying, so to the first part of the question is Galatians 6:9 in scripture says, therefore do not grow weary of doing good, for in due season you will reap if you do not give up. Right? That exactly what you said is the truth of my responsibility is just to pursue, serve, and I will reap if I do not give up. Right? It's that pursuit of just the constant care and serve of other people. But to your question, when I look at faith, broadly speaking, I believe everyone has if you think of it as a ball of belief, right? We all have it. It's not that, someone over here says, it's the same reason why if you say, man, I love that person, and then you guys break up. Well, it's not like all of a sudden now the love that you had for that person just gone and it dissipates and it just doesn't go anywhere. And now you're fine because, that broke, it fell apart, it's gone, and now it's been spent. No, you still have that love in your heart. And that's why it hurts so much because you're like, man, where's this going to go? That's why people rebound, quote unquote, or that's why all of these things happen in relationships, because I have love that I desire to give. It just got rejected. And now what am I going to do with that? It's still there. I think belief is very much the same thing. Faith being the same word, another word synonymous for that is I have faith. Right? It's not whether I do or don't. It's what am I going to have faith in? And so for some people, that is the Lord. For some people, that is a different religion, right? For some people, that is in self. For some people, that's faith in politics or government or whatever the scenario is. Faith in my physical fitness, faith in my business success. But we have faith, right? I don't think it's a question of whether you do or don't. There's universality to, I have faith in something. And now the question is, where am I going to direct that faith? And a lot of people would say, well, I don't have faith in anything, right? I don't believe in God. I don't believe in anything, whatever. I just kind of do my own thing. And for me, it's, well, you have faith in yourself that all the actions you're doing are going to work out. Is that fair? Well, yeah, of course it is. Okay, well, you have faith in yourself and you have faith in the actions you're taking. That's okay. I understand. I'd still love to have a conversation with you about that. For me, my faith is built on the reality and the truth of a God who is in control of literally everything. Who would I want to be in control of my future? Me, who literally, I don't know what's going to happen a minute from now, right? I literally don't know. I'm not keeping my heart beating. I'm not keeping air in my lungs. I mean, my brain is doing that, but who's keeping my brain operating? I don't know what's going to happen a minute from now, but I could trust in the God who literally knows the last day of my life on earth and knows every single day and moment that's going to lead up to that. I'd much rather him be in control of those things. And so again, I think the word faith is a big, broad, much like money. Maybe sometimes people can, I love you said the Heisman are a stiff arm away. Everyone has faith. It's what do you have faith in? And I think if we're honest with that, it gives us a good starting point to say, okay, it's okay that you don't have the same faith as me. I'm not mad at you for that, right? It's totally okay. I would love to have a conversation. I actually just offered this to a gentleman in the real estate world maybe 2 days ago. And he said, well, I don't believe in God at all. And I said, hey, that's totally okay. I would love, out of respect, I would love to hear why you think that. If you are willing to also hear why I think God is real, right? Because you have faith in that and I have faith in this. I'd love to hear you out while you hear me out. And the sad reality of the world, I know this is not the question, but the sad reality of our world was he was like, I don't want to talk to you about that. Okay, well, is it because I was just offering a conversation? You have faith. Everybody has faith. What is the faith in? And that's the question. And is it in the right thing? Right? Because if I have faith in myself, well, guess what? Anything can happen to me. Tomorrow, something crazy could happen. I could break my leg. I could find out I have cancer. I could all these things. I'm not trying to be morbid, but the reality is every single person dies. That's just the reality of it, right? And so what is my faith? If it's only in myself, then it dies with me. And so if it's not just in myself, then does that mean it could outlast me? And meaning there's some eternality to it. So the most important question that anybody could ask is, who is God? And is he worthy of having faith in? That's the best question anybody could ask. We got to figure that out. And I think once somebody figures it out, then we get to decide, okay, now where does this faith go? And what am I going to put it in? Right? Because if you have faith in your ability to build a business, if you have faith that you do these exercises and it's going to reshape your body and get you in health and all of those things, those are all right and true. But that's because, to your point, the order of operations that exist in this world were put here by someone. It was the Lord. He put it here. If you do X, Y, and Z, it helps your body get better. If you do X, Y, and Z in your business, it often leads to business success. Why? That's the way the Lord created it. And so even though I might have faith in myself, the reality is I'm having faith in the system that the Lord put in place in this world, that if I do X, Y, and Z because I've seen it done, that it's going to work. Right? So again, faith or not faith is not the right question. Is what is faith going to be put in? I think ultimately is what we need to be looking at.
That's so beautifully said. I want to let that marinate for a second because it's been top of mind for me, especially for people that love the measurables, right? Everything that's measured doesn't always count, but everything that counts isn't always measured. But sometimes for people that are in the business world, they want the metrics. They want proof of concept. They don't necessarily realize that like, hey, I'm in control. I'm doing these things and I'm going to get result, and it has nothing to do with higher power energy. It's because of me. And I think that is an ego. And I think the way you described it is very healthy to better understand this word faith, and that you do have faith, but what do you have faith in is the better question. There's a lot of pushback around that. And I'm just letting that marinate for a second because I appreciate the way you articulated that. And I think it's going to land not just with me, but for other people. Faith isn't a strategy though. It's a surrender. And success without surrender is a form of stress in disguise, in my opinion. How do you teach others to lead from this place of peace rather than a place of fear or pressure?
First and foremost, right, we are all aware, and you made mention of this, the danger of comparison culture, right? That is the first thing for me and I fall victim to it too, right? I have a colleague in real estate who has 5 kids also. He's gone at the conferences all the time. He's doing I'm like, man, why don't I get to do that? And I remember having that conversation with my wife, not in a prideful way, but in seeking to be humble, right? I am prideful, unfortunately, but the humility of saying, help me figure this out because I want to be home with you. But I also see him out there doing all this stuff thinking, why can't I do that too? And it's, hey, because Garrett, this is the life we agreed that we were in pursuit of, is you to be home as often as possible and only go when it's absolutely necessary for you to go. Oh, okay, you're right. This is what we agreed to. And so this comparison culture of I just was on a podcast a couple hours ago, and she said she's a stay-at-home mom who's also a real estate agent. And she said, man, I got into this industry and everybody said, well, you got to sell 50 homes a year. You're not successful. And she said, I want to sell 15 because I want to be home with my kids. Who are you telling me that's not successful? Do I not get to define what that is? And so it starts for me first, and as we talked about traction and distraction, it starts with me first as let's create the vision of what is it that you want your business to look like? But first, what do you want your life to look like? And let's build the life first and then a business that suits that life and can serve that life. It's too often in our pursuit of the new hustle of a business and getting off the ground, like you talked about earlier, that we just say, you know what, I just got to get this off the ground. I'm only in pursuit of this business and getting it set up and all things. And I understand that totally. I did that too, without thought of, but when I get there, then what happens, right? Because we are wired to just strive and strive and strive. We say it's just a season. It's just a season of striving. Well, no, it's not. If we're honest, we end that season. And what do? We've built the habit of striving. Now we just go right back into it. Instead of saying, this is the life I'm in pursuit of whatever it is, a life of traveling and life of my wife and kids, life of my husband and children, life of whatever your scenario is. And then saying, that's what I'm in pursuit of. Now let me backtrack and say, what kind of business do I need to build in order to serve that life? Started for me, Bryce, in 2016. So I started my real estate business in 2014, but I started on somebody's team in their business. In March of 2016, I left. I started my own, hired my first employees. My wife was working at the time. We didn't have kids. But the next month in April, her father went in for triple bypass surgery, ended up in the hospital for 2.5 years before he passed. So she quit her job. She was gone from home most nights. I had just started a new team, had payroll, had expenses I'd never experienced before. My wife went from 40,000 to nothing literally overnight. And all of us, and my friend and I stupidly had bought a house to flip and renovate literally that same month, which was a terrible decision. But we did it. And here's what happened. All of a sudden, all of this was on me. And so I'm just working my butt off. I mean, 7 to 7 at work and then 7 to midnight, Monday through Saturday at the flip, just over and over. I was eating popcorn and peanut butter. That was basically, sorry. But that's what I was eating, right? Is like, I didn't have time. My wife was gone. I was just running ragged. Well, I finally stopped for a day. I'm dreaming a little bit. What could we actually achieve? My wife's home, Bryce, and we are sitting down for dinner. We pray. I open my eyes, immediately say, look at all we could accomplish. I'm fired up. I mean, I'm running red line the whole time, right? I'm fired up. I'm excited. Look at all the things we could achieve. And I'm like, look, I just got to keep up this pace of 80-hour weeks and it's going to be fine. And look how amazing this is going to be. And I say, okay, what do you think, Rachel, is my wife's name? And she says nothing. Right? She says nothing, Bryce. And I say, okay, did you not hear what I just said? Do you need me to say it again? And she said, Garrett, I love you and I want to do that, but I need you to figure out how to do that in under 40 hours a week. It was the reframe of the question. And so it's the same thing that I want to help somebody else understand. Being in pursuit. How do I build my business to make $200,000 a year, 300, 4, 5, whatever the number is, 50,000. I don't know, wherever anybody is. That's a pretty easy answer. Work yourself to death and make nothing else count. You can do that and it'll work. The better, bigger question for anybody that I'm helping, what do you want your life to look like? How much time do you want to spend with your kids? Let's get to the measurables. I agree with you. I know that 2 day dates a month with my wife doesn't mean I'm a good husband, but I do need something to measure because I can't just say be a good husband as part of my new scorecard, right? Because how do I define what that is? I know that taking every 7th week off doesn't mean I'm a good dad, but I do need something to measure because I do need to be able to track and say, did I actually accomplish what I set out to do as a dad, as a husband? Systems matter, right? Anybody that a lot of business owners in my world, Bryce, are like, I hate the word systems. That's not me. I don't want to be confined, whatever. And I call them out on them like, look, if you're married, let's say we do a family pizza and movie night on Fridays, every Friday night, that's a system. It's repeatable. It's duplicatable because I care about that relationship, right? My wife and I are dates. I care about that relationship. So it's systematized to make sure we do it over and over and over again. So the challenge, to circle back to your question, the challenge that we first face, and how do we create a business that has peace? And it's going to be hard either way, right? Don't hear me say that. But the first way we start, how do we have peace and understand, is what are we actually in pursuit of? Again, the confusion that comes from, Garrett, this decision came to me. I don't know whether to say yes or not. Okay, well, what are you in pursuit of? I don't actually know, other than making more money. All right, we got to get a better definition. If you're in pursuit of the right thing, your decision-making becomes a lot clearer. That gives you a lot of peace, because when you say no to that opportunity, you know you did it because you wanted to say yes to whatever. For me, it's family. You were saying yes to family, Garrett. The byproduct was a no to that person. That's good and right, and you should celebrate that. When we don't have a means to make decisions, which honestly I think is most of us, we're just bombarded with information and this person's doing that and whatever. I don't know how to make decisions. So I make yeses a lot. I say yeses a lot. I did this early on in my career, said yes a lot, didn't really know why, then regretted saying yes to some of it, or didn't have time to say yes to the things I wanted to. And so it all starts with, like every smart person who's way smarter than me ever said, you start with the end in mind. Right? At the very end of your life, we're all going to die. My mom passed away October 2022, right? Literally a week and a half ago, we went back and visited because it was a 3-year anniversary. Looking at mom's headstone. Now, she wasn't a real estate agent, but if mom was a headstone, it wouldn't read, she sold 500 homes, right? Or built a business that made $1 million. It's not going to say those things. But yet, is that what we're actually in pursuit of? Or are we saying what it said for my mom? She was a follower of Jesus, loved her husband, loved her kids, loved her grandkids, right? Are we in pursuit of those things? The things that are going to be etched literally on stone forever, because it's going to be a date and a dash and a date, and the dash is going to represent your life. How are we pursuing that dash, and what are we in pursuit of? And so if we start with the end in mind, it changes the decisions that we make.
Start with the end in mind. That's beautiful. Garrett, if you win the world but lose your home, you've lost it all. I want to let that marinate for a second, because that's popular right now. Hustle culture. Just one more thing. I'll be happy. I'll be ready when. Mm-hmm. Start now. Figure it out along the way. If you win the world but lose your home, you've lost it all. Let's riff on that for a little bit.
It's 100% true, right? There are a lot of celebrations for people who are on their 4th marriage, but they've made $1 bajillion, right? And hey, who cares? It was worth it. Look at what I accomplished. No, it wasn't, right? At the end of your life, is it going to be about I drive a Hyundai Santa Fe, right? It is not a nice car. It's a 2017. We drive a van with a scratch on it, right? And that's okay, because there is, again, you have an ego account and a bank account. I want to fill up the bank account with my family, the bank account in my own bank, but also with the relationships that I have. The ego account means I buy the super nice car. Now I got to work my butt off to prove that I've earned it or pay for it. And so it's naturally going to pull me away because I made a bad decision. And instead of the humility to accept I made a bad decision, I'm just going to keep pursuing the next thing, to pay for it, to do this, the next deal, the next transaction, the next hire, the next whatever, to show the world that I'm worthy of whatever it is that I drive. And I'm not saying it's bad to drive a nice car. I'm saying it's bad to drive a nice car if it drives you to do things you shouldn't be doing. That's pulling you away from the people you love. So I agree with you 1,000%. I'll give a super quick story, Bryce. Last year, a guy in my market, my area, was the number 1 real estate agent in our area, made a ton of money, right? Sold a ton of houses. Well, it was broadly known, sadly, that he'd lost his marriage that year and wasn't speaking to his oldest son. He's older than we are. Wasn't speaking to his oldest son. But the night of the award ceremony, he was up there on stage, got the number one award, was taking selfies with other people, celebrating all the things. Wow, congratulations, whatever. He went home to an empty house. Now, in our ego, we would say, I want to be number one agent, right? And that's okay. It's good. You should pursue excellence. And if that means you're the number one podcast, number one business owner, it doesn't matter. That's awesome. Be in pursuit of excellence and see where that takes you. That's great. However, would he have traded that he went home to a loving family for selling more houses? I don't know that answer, but that's not the question that matters. The question is, for anybody listening, would you make that trade? Right? Are you going to be in pursuit of number one, even if it means it costs you everything? Or are you going to say that's not a trade worth making, which is not a trade worth making for the record? And I'm going to say it's okay to let somebody else celebrate being number one. I'm going to celebrate coming home to a family that loves me and knows me and I get to spend time with. And so I think we've got to really try to think clearly in those terms. And I agree with 1,000% of what you said.
It's not about transactions. It's about transformation. What is your philosophy based on kind of adding everything that we've talked about today around how to teach realtors and salespeople how to serve first rather than sell?
I had a podcast for a long time called Serving, Not Selling. That's my heart. That's my shtick. That's my thing, right? I think what we misunderstand, anything in business, we think that it's about being buttoned up, being dialed up, having the right scripts, the right words, all the things. And I'm not saying those are inherently wrong. What I'm saying is what matters more is how well do I show up and care for the person right in front of me? You made mention of it earlier. Hey, how can I help so-and-so succeed? It might not mean anything to me right now, but by building that trust and showing them, here's the actual tactical reality. So I started studying a ton of how consumers make decisions from the psychology perspective. And everyone's looking at 3 questions they're going to ask whether they want to hire you or not. Whether you're a real estate sales or a business, it doesn't matter. Can I trust you? Are you good at what you do? And do you care about me? Can I trust you? Are you good at what you do? And do you care about me? It breaks down to those 3 questions. But what's crazy is almost everyone competes on, am I good at what I do? Let me show you why I'm the best one, the best agent, the best mortgage lender, the best landscaper, the best doesn't matter. Let me show you why I'm the best one. Well, here's what consumers can't understand. I don't know who the best one is. I just went to my dentist this morning. I like my dentist, Dr. Archer. But if someone said to me, Garrett, is Dr. Archer the best dentist in town? The honest answer would be, I have no idea. I have no idea what it takes to be a good dentist. The average consumer can only understand someone else's industry at a 2 out of 10 level. I don't know what it takes to be great at what you do. You don't know what it takes to be great at what I do. Now, theoretically, we have some understanding, right? But I don't know. But all of us compete on that question. Here's the crazy part. When you do the deeper research and you start to see the psychology and all the studies and surveys they've done, if you can answer, are you trustworthy and do you care? You'll actually end up answering also, are you good at what you do? Because the person's going to assume you're good at what they do. You're good at what you do because they want you to be. I like this person. It seems like they care about me. I think they must be good at what they do because I want them to be. Therefore, I'm hiring you. That's actually how people make decisions. And so when I'm talking to salespeople, it's instead of showing up and talking about how great you are at whatever it is that you do, you show up and you show them that you're trustworthy. You ask them questions to show that you actually care. If you can do both of those well, then they're going to say, this guy must be good at what they do. Now, you should be excellent at what you do. That's how you create retention and referrals. But at the end of the day, if we show up and do the right things and understand how the consumer on the other end of this decision is actually going to make that decision, it changes the way we approach people. It helps us win more often. It helps us be focused on serving instead of selling them. How good am I? That's sales. Caring for you and showing you that I'm trustworthy, that's service. And you only get there through service. So it's not just a reframe, right, of serve, not sell. It is literally data driven by this is actually how people are going to make those decisions. Therefore, show up and do that well.
I had to write that down, man. I was like itching inside because it's so true, man. Like in fitness, you see it like everybody's trying to flex their their resume, their education, the title, their body composition. But being in this industry for almost 20 years now, it's so true. Are you trustworthy? Are you good at what you do? Kind of falls in the center. And then the third one being, do you care? Those three things are powerful, man. Like if people get nothing else from today's conversation, I really do think the trustworthy and care component, they punch me in the soul, man. I felt that like hardcore. Is that something that you talk about extensively in your book?
Definitely. So, and to break down, right, how do you show someone you trust and care? Because they're, oh, that's cool. You just ask a lot of questions and you be curious about them, right? I don't, to your point, man, I don't even know who the best agent is in my market. And I'm an agent, right? If you say, who's the best fitness trainer in your area? Well, you might say, well, it's me. But, compared to everybody else in their resume, whatever, you might not even know. I don't know. We're all good. Here's the top 5 of us. So consumers can't make those decisions. What we need to understand is I can show you that I'm trustworthy and I care. I'll give you a super quick example. We replaced our windows a couple years ago. Had a guy come in at 6:00 at night. We had 3 kids, I think, at the time. 6:00 at night, started talking about his fancy triple pane, whatever window. And he stayed till 9 p.m., right? My kids are crying. They need to go to bed. I'm trying to get him out. He's just not paying attention. And he says, Garrett, whatever you do, don't go with normal vinyl because they're not good enough. I'm like, all right, whatever, get out of my house. What's the thing I did the next day? I have no idea if he was right. What's the thing I did the next day? I called my buddy who sells vinyl windows. He came in, or I called my buddy who told me about a friend who sold vinyl windows. I didn't know this guy. Guy shows up, comes in the house. It's right in the middle of the day. And he says, comes inside, introduces himself. He says, oh, Garrett, sorry, man. I didn't realize you had 3 young kids. Hey, would it help you? He's like, I got a young kid too. Would it help you if I just went around the house? I'll do some measurements and I'll just email you later a quote. And then if you have questions, call me, man. But I don't want to get in the way of your family. Who did I hire? I absolutely hired that guy. Are his windows better or worse? I have no idea because I don't know what makes a window better or worse. But I knew right away, this guy gets it, man. He cares about my family. He's clearly trustworthy because of all these things he did. And I gave him information, all the things. I could go into detail on that. But he clearly cared. And so therefore, if this guy seems like I can just trust his opinion, he's going to give me a quote. Now, if it was $100,000, I would say no, but it wasn't. It seemed reasonable. I don't know. And so I said, bro, will you come help me? Whereas the other guy pitched, this is how good our windows are. This is why we're the best installer and blah, blah, blah. I have no idea how to determine, but I can tell whatever the guy's name was, you didn't care because my kids are freaking out and you didn't say, you know what, Garrett, why don't we take a break? Or let me just excuse myself. I'll send you some information. You didn't care about me and you made it all about being the best one. If you're the hero in the story, that means I can't be the hero too. I want to be the hero in my own story. So if you're going to talk about you being the hero, you don't get to write a story about me. You just better hope that I think you're so great that I'm going to come along. Well, that's not how this works. In fitness, hey, the hero is not you. The hero is the person on the other end who's like, I need to transform something. Hey, I understand. When I sit down with the seller, real quick, Bryce, when I would sit down with a home seller, what I was taught to do was you sit down, you talk about all the homes you've sold, and you talk about your marketing plan and how good it's going to be, right? And I just thought that's stupid. And then I started learning that it really was, and it doesn't work. And so instead, I'd sit down and I would literally sit there and say, look, before we even get started, what fears or concerns do you have going into this process? I need you to trust me with that personal information, right? And then I'd share a little bit about my experience and how I care, and I get it, all the things, blah, blah, blah. And then I would say, after 20, 30 minutes of them sharing with me personal information, I need to be influenced by you. I'm going to ask questions. I care about what's going on. Why are you guys doing this? Hey, it looks like you have some older kids. Are they getting a better school? Whatever it is, whatever the scenario, I ask a lot of questions and then I get their permission. I think I have a good plan that might help you get where you want to go. Is it okay if I share that with you? Oh yeah, please do. Great. Share it with them for 10 minutes. And at the end, it's great. What do we need to do from here? Right? There's a reason why. It's not me. It's this data. My conversion rate with clients is so much higher than most people because I'm not trying to be the best one, right? I'm not trying to be the best one. For you to show up and say, tell me about you, right? And it's all these, man, I've been wrestling through this diet and blah, 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 and this exercise, blah, 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 blah. Hey, I get it. right? I've been there, whatever the scenario, I've been there too. This story is about you. I think I have something that might help you change your story. Is that okay if I share that with you? Man, the buy-in for people, getting permission for those things will totally transform how effective you are in your business. And so, yeah, for whatever that's worth, I hope that helps somebody.
Service over sales, man. You described that so beautifully. Tell me about the book, man. What's the title? What's kind of the meat and potatoes, and where can we find it?
Yeah. No, thank you for asking. So it's called The Balanced Breakthrough, Winning at Work Without Losing at Life. It's everything we've been talking about, right? It's my hope of the equipping for people to restructure how they think about their life and their business, to equipping them to actually tactically being able to accomplish what they're trying to do. Some of these sales techniques we talked about, right? Because if I can help you increase your conversion rate and you sell more often when you have opportunities, you don't have to be gone as much, right? To try to get those sales numbers. To now, what are some actual tactical, practical next steps? So my hope is that it really, and I'll share where to get it, but my win for me, Bryce, is I hope it helps a lot of people. But at the end of the day, if I meet a kid, somebody's kid who says, Mr. Garrett, or whatever they'd call me, thank you for what you did because I see my mom a lot more, right? I see my dad a lot more. That to me is a win. I want to change the family. I want to see marriages stay together. I want to see families and kids grow up with mom or dad while they're building a business. And I have to start with their business and their mindset, right? So that's my hope in this book. Ultimately, they can go to GarrettMaroon.com and get all the information they need right there. Man, I hope it's a blessing to as many people as possible.
You're so well spoken. Today's conversation really, really lit a fire in my heart and my soul, man. I really appreciate your authenticity and your passion. You do a great job creating examples and metaphors that we can relate to. And so it feels tangible in our storytelling today. Garrett, where can people find you, man?
I'm not that cool on Instagram, but they can try me on Instagram. That would probably be the best way. And then literally, I would say, if there's anything I can do for any of your listeners, please message me. I want belly to belly. This is not meant to be hear the message and go change your life. Like just like you, Bryce, no doubt that's your heart. If I can actually help you one-on-one change, I want to do that, whatever that means. So please reach out, have a conversation. If you are in the fitness world, have a conversation with Bryce, right? Or your team or whatever that looks like. Change doesn't come from, I take information in and then I go change. Information podcast can be a spark, but real change comes from conversation and one-on-one, right? So I encourage anybody who's like, man, I should do something, then actually do something, right? Message Bryce. If you're like, my health's not where it should be, then send him a message and just do something in the direction of progress, right? So same thing. If there's anything I can do to help anybody, please message me, take a step in that right direction, and it'll be a step worth taking.
I love it, man. Guys, if you enjoyed my conversation with Garrett Maroon today, please rate, review, subscribe, and share with your friends. And as always, stay on the hunt for who you've not yet become. Thanks, Garrett.
Thank you, brother.